26.
Might be a slightly different translation. When Jehovah brought back his exiles to Jerusalem, it was like a dream. How we laughed and sang for joy. And the other nations said, "What amazing things the Lord has done for them. Yes, glorious things. What wonder, what joy. May we be refreshed as by streams in the desert. Those who sow tears shall reap joy. Yes, they go out weeping, carrying seed for sowing, and they return singing, carrying their sheaves."
Catches you by surprise when it's a different translation. They didn't, the light that it throws on different points. If I would have stuck with the sermon that I was looking at through the week, it would have been Isaiah 41, and we would have looked at it from the New Living Translation, because it really doesn't come out the manner, the tone in which God is speaking concerning the idols that were in the land of Israel, and his mockery of them. If you can picture the way Elijah spoke when he spoke to the false prophets of Baal, he said, "Well, where is he then? Has he gone to the washroom? Is he asleep? Can't he speak?" And all that mockery that comes forth. Well, the Lord, in his way of speaking, mocks them as well. You can do nothing, can you? You can't tell me what it was like at the beginning, and you're not going to be able to tell me what it's like at the end. And so he just mocks their futility. And I was looking at two particular points that Isaiah brings out, that of the futility of idols and the method in which God was going to deliver the children of Israel whilst they were in the land of Babylon. I was working hard through the week in regards to that, but it just wouldn't come together, and so I decided just to set it aside. And as I was just going over what I tend to do, I don't know how you do it, but if I'm with the subject that we've been looking at, Isaiah 40 through to 48, 49, I very often will read it consecutive right through, read the chapters, try and get a little bit of an overview as to what's being said, and to pick up the tenor in which God is speaking. And as I was going through, it just came that moment where you just felt the overall view that Isaiah had. When Paul finished his great thesis from Romans chapter 1 to Romans 11, he talks about all the different points of doctrine, of how God considers the unsaved, both in history and in the present day, and also what he's done to save the unsaved, to make them saved, to make them Christians, and the different aspects of Christian life, of justification, of peace, of sanctification, all those different things. Then he turns and deals with the children of Israel. And so this great scope, this scan that he does from chapter 1 to chapter 11, and he ends on these verses. "Oh, the depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments, and his ways are past finding out." Now, Isaiah is not as controlled as Paul. Paul waits, and now and again he gives a little doxology. Is Jeff all right, Ruth?
Yeah, he just popped into the flash.
Okay. As long as he's all right. And so, whereas with Paul, now and again he gives a little doxology concerning the character of God in the book of Romans. He really sums it up in that verse there. The depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments, and his ways past finding out. Well, Isaiah is unable to contain himself in these 9 chapters. He struggles. And every now and again, he just bursts out. And bearing in mind, he is looking to the future. And so he's seeing, he's hearing, he's feeling all that is going to transpire in about 150 years' time. When Isaiah is living, there's prosperity, there's blessing, there's godly kings. There's a man called Hezekiah, likely to be on the throne at this time, albeit his son was an absolute outer Manasseh. And so we find that Isaiah, living among some godly kings, he's able to look forward where God is speaking to him and saying, "Now listen, There is coming a time when you will be taken over by the people of Babylon. They shall come and they shall move you from where you are to where they are, and you'll be strangers in a foreign land. And he deals with all the issues that brings in. And once he's looking at all this that's going on, he pens 3 songs. 3 songs are penned in this little group of chapters that we have. We have Isaiah 40 to 49, and within there he pens 3 songs. And these are the songs that he sings about. He sings about what he shall do, what he has done, and what he will continue to do. The 3 separate songs. And we'll see where the songs are connected as we come towards the end of the little sermonette that we've got and the reading that Lorraine kindly took for us, because they're connected in the sense of singing. Singing. It can be a great mistake for some churches to go too far singing. It can be a great mistake of other churches who don't want to sing. There is a balance in God that allows his people to express worship to him. There are many discussions about what it is to be filled with the Spirit. If you read the book of Ephesians, someone who is filled with the Spirit is constantly singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, making melody in his heart or her heart. That's one of the signs of being filled with the Spirit. Don't hear that one very often, do we? We have the various qualifications of what it is. A person, a church, anointed by God is a singing church. And here Isaiah, as he goes over these chapters and sees what God will do, and sees what God has done, and then sees what God will continue to do, he pens 3 songs. And this is what they say. The first one is in chapter 42, and it's verse 10. And it says this: "Sing unto the Lord a new song, and his praise from the ends of the earth." And it goes on to encourage, well, it comes to a point where all that are in the sea and the oceans themselves shall praise God. Even those that dwell in the tents of Kedar and Selah. You might wonder where Selah is. It's that town that's today is quite famous in Jordan, where you go through that narrow, the cliffside, the cliffs are on either side, the narrow gorge that goes through, and you've got that structure in the cliffs. They call it Petra. That's Selah. It's in Edom, formerly. Today it's in Jordan. But Kedar and Edom were enemies of Israel, long-time enemies of Israel. And yet even they will sing to the Lord. And so we find as we go through the various verses there, after verse 10, we find that there's a great sense of worship. Then he says this, he gives the reason why. And this is the reason why. And he says this: "For he shall go forth. For he shall stir up his zeal. For he shall cry aloud. For he shall prevail." So the first song, as he looks at it, he's looking at what God will do. And he said, listen now, this is what the theme of the song will be. He being God himself, he shall go forth. He shall stir up his zeal. He will allow his jealousy. He says about himself, doesn't it? I'm a jealous God. He shall stir up his zeal. How can God be jealous? He's jealous over you because you have something that is less than what he wants to give you. That's what he's jealous about. His jealousy. He's jealous over you. And he wants to give you things, and the people don't respond. He will stir up his zeal. He shall cry aloud. He shall shout. and he shall go forth and prevail over his enemies. That word prevail there, it means this: he shall behave himself mightily. That's the way you got it in your authorized version, the little margin there, you should find it there. He shall behave himself mightily. This is the first song. And it's all future context. Because he's looking to the future. He sees the mess in front of him, the vision, the different words that Jehovah has given to him are all there for him to see. And he looks at it, a song breaks into his heart. So very often in the jigsaw puzzle, don't we? We find it so hard to see outside of the box that we are actually in. When you look at a building site, it looks as if it's something you can't really see what's going on. There's little bits going over there, little bits going here, little bits there within the boundary, the curtilage of the building, and you just can't see what's going on. But there is an architect that understands fully what's going on, and why that man is doing what he's doing, why that lady is doing what she's doing, why that kettle is boiling now. All those different things the architect understands. And so Isaiah turns in this place and he says, now look, the jigsaw puzzle of this part of the history of Israel, he shall go forth. Don't fret now. He shall go forth. He shall stir his zeal. He shall cry out. He shall shout aloud. Later on in that chapter, he said, I will hold my peace no longer. I will not be held in silence. He shall prevail. Who shall he prevail with? He shall prevail over his enemies. So look at the second song. Chapter 44, verse 23. Sing, O heavens, for the Lord has done it. Past tense. It's still yet to take place. But Isaiah, he sees the beginning of it. Oh, the travail, the sense of barrenness, the desolation of the whole nation, the sense of loss. But God gives him a vision. Now, this is what I'm going to do, Isaiah. I'm going to go forth. My zeal will be stirred. I will cry out at the top of my voice, and I'll prevail against the enemies. That's what I'm going to do. And then Isaiah in chapter 44, he turns and he says this, sing, O heavens, for the Lord has done it. Shout, you lower parts of the earth, break forth into singing, you mountains, O forest and every tree. What are they singing about? He has redeemed Jacob. He has glorified himself in Israel. And so it's a second stage. We see the Lord going forth. Israel can't see it. They're not aware of it. They just hear the people dominating and dictating them, circumstance controlling all of their lives. But the chief architect knows what's going to happen. He knows what's going to happen, and he knows what he's going to do. And he comes and he gives them these hopes as they would read these words, when in the midst of the land they would have people there that would be godly people, and they would recall these words of Isaiah. The Lord is coming. He shall be jealous for you. He shall be stirred deeply within. He'll cry out at the top of his voice. He will prevail against your enemies. And then he sees this stage. And the Lord has done it. He's redeemed Jacob, and he's glorified himself in Israel. So we find that a third song is struck up. Chapter 49, verse 13, coming towards the end of the whole section. Sing, O heavens, be joyful, O earth. Break out into singing, O mountains. When God moves, if you notice the figurative language that is used, trees clap their hands and sing. Mountains skip. Rivers rejoice. The hind and the deer and all the creation itself. It says when he moves upon the children of Israel as they return to Zion, even the jackal and the ostrich and the beasts of the field shall rejoice together. Jesus said himself, didn't he? That the very stones will cry out. The whole creation groans for the manifestation of God and his people. And so this third song, O heavens, sing, be joyful, O earth, break out in singing, O mountains. Notice what he's done. He's now talking in the sense of a continual. He has comforted, and he will have mercy on his afflicted. That's the continuance of it. You see, you can have a stirring in your heart. You can't see your way forward you can't see the wood for the trees, as the saying goes. You just cannot see your way forward in it. Listen. The Lord shall go forth. He shall prevail. You say, well, I feel that help. He has redeemed them. He has comforted them. He has glorified himself in this circumstance. And he will continue to have mercy on his afflicted. 3 songs burst out. 3 songs where the prophet gets the whole picture. Are you someone that really concentrates, levels down on something? That you're unable to see, you get so caught up in the immediate there. Or in the circumstance whereby your life, you see only yourself. And you just can't get past yourself. But God says, no, listen now. Listen, there's a bigger picture here. There is something going on that is bigger. Something going on that is sweeter. Something going on that is lighter. I will prevail. He has no doubts about it. He has redeemed. He has glorified himself amongst his people. I have comforted, and I will continue to have mercy on my afflicted. We heard about it last night, wasn't it? The 85 years of Penyrheol, that God has kept them. God has kept them. Let's have a look at the reason for the singing then. Let's put it into practical terms, what it means for the children of Israel. Chapter 48, verse 20 says this. Go forth from Babylon. Flee from the Chaldeans with the voice of singing. That's where the singing comes from. That's where the singing comes from. Go forth from Babylon. Flee the children of the Chaldeans with the voice of singing. It's a wonderful thing to be set free. It's a wonderful thing to set free. When you first read that flee from the Chaldeans, and you almost picture, well, where's the joy in that? But as you read the account of what happened, they sang. They said, someone was asking me about North Wales. I forget who it was now. I forget who we were talking to. Jason Medcraft. He found this little, out in the wilds of Dolgellau, just by Cadair Idris, he found this little plaque that was dated 1888. We were talking about this church that he found. And at that time, in those days, they would have these big open conventions. Wouldn't have it within a building. It would be so many people there. They'd have it out in the farmers' fields. And they would come over the mountains singing. They'd start off with 6 of them and become 600. They would walk down the country lanes, no big roads in those days. They would cross over fields. They would stop in villages to get water by the well. And they would sing, and they would sing. And the congregation would number in their thousands. It goes back almost 100 years earlier, when people like Thomas Charles was up in Bala, and he taking over the reins really of the leading of the Welsh churches in preaching the gospel, and we find that thousands gathered in these northern town villages, and they would have these great conventions there, but they would come singing. And here, flee with the voice of singing. This is what we sing very often. When Jean is on the piano and really banging away on there, we hear these words. Therefore, the redeemed of the Lord shall return. They shall come to Zion with singing. Everlasting joy shall be on their heads. Forget the rest of it. What is it? And shall be on their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness. Sorrow and sighing shall flee away. When they're returning to Zion, when they're returning to Jerusalem, when Lorraine read those words, when the Lord brought back the captivity of Zion, we were like them that dream. We just could not believe it. We were like those who dream. Our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue with singing. What Isaiah 40 to 49 helps us to do is this, is to see outside of the box. To see the bigger picture. It doesn't mean there won't be tears. Listen to what he says in one of the chapters. You are a God that hides yourself. You remember W.J. Morgan, if you were in Ealing preaching that years ago on a Thursday night, you are a God that hides yourself. And yet we know for a fact that Isaiah said that, behold your God. And so you have these ups and downs. But here we find that he sings 3 songs of what God will do, of what God has done, and of what will God continue to do. They are songs. There is a song that he places within the hearts of his children. Sue Barkley told me about a song that had been resonating in her heart throughout the week. Helped her, encouraged her. Through the week, me and Judith, or I was asking Judith rather, what's that song? What's the words of those songs? He knows my name. Now you understand why I was singing that? Because I was looking at the method that God was going to deliver Israel. He knew a man who could do it. And he named him. 150 years before he was even, well, when he was not even, his father wasn't even alive. And he named him Cyrus. He knows my name. A song can encourage your heart. It can speak into your soul. You can get an expression from within that allows you to see that God, whether in the future, whether for the past, whether for now, he has a song that can allow us to see God on the throne. But short words. I trust there's been some benefit, and maybe songs will bless your own heart this week, that the Lord will encourage you in that regard of singing songs to him. We have